Einkorn is the most primitive form of wheat on earth. Why does that matter?
Hi everyone, my name is Kimberly McIntyre for any of you new to my channel, and for those of you returning, I want to thank you so much for being here. I'm a nutrition and wellness coach bringing you all things health. I am sitting here today with the owners of Ancient Grains, Jade and Julie, and I want you to share your story with us.
So Julie and I, we were living like most people, eating whatever food was available to us, and as a family, we really valued the nutritional aspect of it. We were raised in nutritional, mindful families, and we valued it, but in many ways, there weren't as many of the resources available to us at the time. And so we were doing a lot of research. Julie is amazing at this, and she knows a lot more about it than I do. One of our family friends came to me one day, and he said, "Hey, Jade, I knew you grew up, on a farm, and I came across this grain that's really interesting. I thought you might be interested in it. It's called Einkorn, and it's the world's most primitive form of wheat." And he was telling me all about it. It has 14 chromosomes, whereas modern wheat has 42 chromosomes, all these things. So speaking to its genetic primitive nature, and I was like, wow. And so I talked with Julie about it. I found that the domain name einkorn.com was available for sale. It closed, the auction for it closed. This is a Saturday, so on Monday is when this auction closed. And I said, should we bid on it? And she's like, yeah, I'm good with that. So we put a bid in on it, and I was in a really busy career at the time. So Monday at noon came around, and I was like, oh, this auction ends soon. I need to go check it. And I went and checked it, and I had been outbid. So I raised my bid a little bit more, and then I didn't think about it. And then at night I got home, and I had won this auction for this domain name. So we put up a blog together with our friends, the one that originally told me about it, and we wrote in this blog. Julie was, not as involved at this point yet. It was more my friend Stan and I writing and putting on the blog. We were contacted by people all over the world about Einkorn. These were health food people, nutritionists, farmers, and so forth. We were able to get our hands on some Einkorn, and the first time Julie baked with it. Julie's really good at baking, and she can make anything.
There's a learning curve for sure. It's almost easier to teach somebody who's never baked to use Einkorn rather than someone who's trying to transfer from, wheat to Einkorn. But it's doable. It's just you have to have a different mindset. Einkorn is a wet grain, especially with bread. If you're not careful, it can get kind of concrete-ish on you, and you think it's not done, so you keep adding more flour, and then that's really bad. So I put my family through a whole lot. Yeah. Anybody who wants to do this can do it.
And I'm going to learn how. So I'm going to be bringing this home to you and teaching you how to use Einkorn. Will you tell us why? What is the value, and what are the reasons why I'm going to go home and I'm going to learn how to make this?
So Einkorn, like I was saying earlier, is the most primitive form of wheat on earth. Modern wheat has 42 chromosomes. Einkorn has 14. Modern wheat has been hybridized a few times to become what it is today from the original wheat, the most primitive wheats that we see in nature. And these are gathered, in the 50s, the United States sent people all over the world gathering seeds from mountains of Turkey, in Iraq, and just in the wild, right? And when they did that, they found over 300 varieties of Einkorn in the mountains.
Wow.
And in cultivation as well. So Einkorn is like a different subspecies from wheat, and it's higher in many nutrients. On our website, we post a comparison about it, but it's higher in protein. That's one we recognize. It's higher in antioxidants. When you bake with it, it has kind of a yellow. The flour's kind of yellow, and that's because it's really high in lutein. Is a great antioxidant. High in vitamin A. I think one of the big things is that it contains only the A genome, whereas modern wheat contains the A, B, and D genome. And they've done research on this. You can look at some of the scientific studies on our website, where they found that it is the D genome where there are certain segments of the human population that have allergies to that D genome. Not everybody does. And so it's kind of like the AA milk thing, if you ever heard of that.
It's A2.
It's A2, yeah. Similar thing.
Yes.
And so Einkorn has a simpler genetic structure. It's easier to digest, and that shows up when you bake. Like Julie was saying, it's kind of wet. And that's because it breaks down very quickly. Even though it's higher in protein, the proteins break down and they don't hold their structure. They're not as strong. So the type, you're not going to make big fluffy loaves with einkorn, but you can make really nice bread and it tastes delicious. It's very good. And
you're pretty sciencey for not being a scientist.
Well, I've done a little bit of research, but I hope I got it all right. Einkorn is just the AA genome in it. And I think that is a significant thing for people that have suffer with gluten intolerance, or they have any sort of digestive sort of issues. It's something to consider and try.
Yes.
Talk to your doctor, or if you like to experiment, try it.
Yes.
And we have some people that say that's the only thing they can eat, the only wheat they can eat. It's a great resource to be able to have available for people.
People get confused a lot because it's called einkorn. They think we're talking about a corn of some kind. We're not talking about corn. It's German for one grain, right? Einkorn. And the reason that it's called einkorn is because in modern wheat there are like 6. That's called the hexaploid. And einkorn is a diploid. There's only 2. So we literally only get a third off the field that you would get from modern wheat, which is why it's more expensive. It literally just is more expensive to grow. Plus, we're very committed to growing it organically. So those are the reasons why the price is it's higher, but it's not our crazy markup.
So we were talking earlier, and something she said, which if you have listened to me, you hear me say it all the time: either pay now or pay later.
Yeah.
Not being sarcastic, it's real, something for people to really think about. And just so you know, she's obviously learned how to make einkorn bread delicious, because we just had some and it was fabulous. So if I took this home, and because I make traditional bread, and what I mean by that is it's not sourdough, although I'm going to try to make sourdough soon. If I take this home and I were to add some of the einkorn to my mixture of grains, would that work okay?
Yeah, it would work great.
And then I'm getting the added nutrition.
I'll just tell you, when you are converting a recipe that you already are familiar with that calls for wheat, and you want to use einkorn in it instead, a lot of people, like I mentioned earlier, are going to be tempted to put more and more flour in to get the right consistency.
Yes.
Instead of doing that, lower your liquid. Whatever it is, just take out like a third and start there. Your ratios of salt or sugar or whatever will be off if you add too much flour, and it will...
Too dry?
It will
or
make
not
it too heavy.
Too heavy.
It will be too heavy. It will make an inferior product. So just instead of increasing your flour, decrease the liquid.
Okay. I'm excited to get started. I'm excited to try.
It will be fun.
It's all about, we like to add all the nutrients that we can and get it in one place, and what better place to get it than bread? Because I haven't met anyone who doesn't like bread. They might not be able to eat it, but they sure do want to.
Yes, all right. So in 2015, we bought a little bit of farm ground, which is right around our home here. And immediately we started transitioning it to organic, certified organic. And that process not only helped me to get familiar with the standards of organic and compliance and all that goes with that, record keeping, but also I was able to go back to my youth growing up on a farm. My dad was so good at teaching us and getting us involved in a farm, and I loved that. So I got to work together with my brothers and sisters on the farm, And many of the practices that we used on the farm back then were similar to the ones that we use today. Not relying on chemicals, relying more on crop rotation for fertility and weed management. And some of those practices that we used were just natural to me. And I talked to my dad, and he said, yeah, that would totally work for what you're trying to do there. And we used some of those things, and I talked to my dad occasionally, and he helped us get through that and figure it out. It was really pretty amazing how well that translated to some of those old practices, which goes back to the way my grandpa farmed. But obviously in my teens, chemicals started becoming more and more prevalently used on farm for weed control, as well as, obviously inputs for fertility. What we're doing here on our farm is totally different than that. Nature actually has the technology built into it to do it all naturally and in a sustainable way. We just have to learn how to use the nature. And the way that God built this planet is amazing. I like to say it's the greatest technology that we have on Earth, because we think about all the cool technology we have, and the greatest technology is the technology that came with it, so to speak. It was built with this technology. And I think it's so amazing to actually watch the earth do what it does. When you buy grain from us, it's coming from a field that is certified organic, first of all. But also, we're using these regenerative methods to build sustainable ways to make the soil fertile, to manage weeds without the use of any herbicides, like glyphosate and many other herbicides that people use. We don't use any of those. We do, like you said, we test them to make sure that it's not somehow drifted or otherwise gotten into the field, right? We test it, make sure. But that practice, I think, can, as a family, these are the grains that we eat. This is what we feed our family. Organic and regenerative sustainable methods, working hand in hand to make the farming practices something that will result in a farm that can, sustain itself, but also make nutrient-dense foods without any harmful toxins in them.
In the description below, I will put my link where you can order these grains, because it just matters. It makes so much difference in your health, and it's not just the way they're growing it. It's also dependent upon what's going on beside them and what could be blowing on them, and you're testing for this. I want to thank both of you for taking this time to share a little bit of your story, and we have a lot more to come, so tune in for more.
I'll say one more thing too. So our website is einkorn.com, right? But the main website that we're actually using now is ancientgrains.com. And that's because of the other grains that we offer. We wanted everybody to get all of those in one place.
Ancient Grains, that's where you want to go.
Yes. ancientgrains.com has all the grains. Yeah.
We'll just do the first one,
Okay,
where you guys are telling your story.
Jump in. Just jump in.
I'm not worried about that either.
Hi, everyone.